What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JAR. JAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. It's our weekly show where we go over the magic stories as they're posted on Wizard's website. This week we have The Shapers, once again by the R&D narrative team. Once again, we are in Ixalan. My quick review at the beginning of this story is it was great. It was short, sweet, to the point, abrupt ending, made you left you wanting more, introduced new characters, did it in the right way, paid great attention to detail, built up the world. I don't know how I could say more without going into the full review itself, but there are no excuses. If you like the magic stories and you have not read it yet, go read it. It does not take a lot of time, and it is worth your time. So that's my quick review in the beginning. As we always say, we review, we do not summarize. So you should go read it first and then come back and watch our review itself. You were nodding your head. What are your thoughts on your quick review at the beginning?
Yeah, not skippable.
No, it was great. Okay, good. So, that being said, on to the full review itself. The Shapers is just what it says. We were introduced to the Shapers. The Shapers being the Shapers of Nature, the merfolk, the ones that are protecting the Golden City of Oraska and the Immortal Sun from, as we heard probably a couple of times, from outsiders, interlopers, but also from themselves. They don't even know. I mean, it's seemingly Tashana knows where it is, but the other Shapers do not. They don't know. The other merfolk don't know where the Golden City is, where the Immortal Sun is. Although, from what we have heard, it is the heart of Ixalan. It is the heartbeat of Ixalan. It is the center. And we got even a little bit of a glimpse into what that is and what that means, in that we were told that it has brought it had brought turmoil in the past. It had brought ruin in the past. And that it could do so again. And that the merfolk are seemingly here to protect that.
Yeah.
More importantly, I think, and I mentioned this slightly at the beginning, but for those of you that may be new and may not have seen our previous videos from Ixalan, reviewing Ixalan stories, we had a big problem with Huatli's story.
Yes, we did.
And it was a shame, because on Amonkhet, I really enjoyed, the individual character stories for the new characters from Amonkhet, who we probably won't necessarily be seeing again unless we return to Amonkhet at some point in the presumably distant future. So people like Hapatra, people like Jeru. These are characters. Now, Jeru is a little unfair because he was very entrenched in the story, but what about Hapatra? She was in like one and a half stories. Even Hazaret or Oketra or these characters who, sure, they had bigger parts, but they were still secondary characters in comparison to someone like Samut, who did end up becoming a planeswalker, and then you also, of course, had the Gatewatch 5, plus Nicol Bolas himself. And so these were all secondary or tertiary characters who were on Amonkhet, but whom we were introduced to and who we liked a lot.
Well, it's not just about liking. It's about becoming invested in the characters.
Yes.
And those stories did that well.
Yes. They took the time, they invested the time. And then we come to Huatli. And we were talking about the fact that, like, oh, we're really excited. We're on a new plane. Let's meet new characters. R&D narrative team, or at the time the individual writers, or the story team as a whole, seemed to have done a really good job of being able to introduce us to new characters. We just come from Amonkhet, where they did a great job. And so we were really looking forward to Huatli and the other members of the Sun Empire, right, who we were being introduced to at that moment. We were looking forward to hearing from them and learning new and wonderful things about these new characters. And
didn't happen.
No, I mean, it fell flat. Go and watch that full review if you want our full individual and in-depth opinions on it, but this story did it right. The Huatli story was long, it was repetitive, right? It became like duplicative of things that they were talking about. And it was frustrating. This story was almost frustrating in how short it was. And that's not a negative.
Right, that's a good thing.
Yes, because it ended with both of us going, wait, it's over? I want more. Where's the rest of it? Because presumably the answer is the rest of it is next week or the week after. You know, we will
or
hear
much later than that.
Right. And we will hear the continuation of what happens to Kumena and Tishana and etc. next week in Kapala or whatever. Again, like Amy said, whether it's next week or whether it's weeks from now, we will find out the ending to that story before we leave Ixalan in 2 sets. And that's fine, because this story did a great job of doing so many things.
Yes.
So many things. It went into explicit detail. For example, the story started with the most... It was perfect. I thought it was perfect. It was Kapala, right? The story was originally being told from Kapala's perspective, and then it shifted at the end very briefly to Tishana's. But it was being told mostly from Kapala's perspective, who is the youngest shaper. He's kind of new to all of this. But the fact that it was being told from his perspective was really nice, because we got to hear about Tishana, and we got to hear about Kumena, who are larger, seemingly, at least, in terms of characterization. They were more fully fleshed out, because we got to see them from one of their own kind's eyes, and we got to hear about their characterizations and their motivations, and then we also got to see that through their actions and their words, but we had gotten a brief glimpse of it from Kapala actually talking about them and saying, Tishana is like this, and Kumena is like this, and that's good. That makes sense, and it's a nice way to bolster the information that we're gaining from hearing from Tishana and hearing from Kumena and their words and kind of their back and forth, even, with one another, their banter, whatever.
Because instead of just getting to see one circumstance that these characters happen to be in and how they react to that circumstance, we get to find out a little bit more about what makes them have those motivations, those feelings, those decisions. And that's important to understanding characters and caring about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the next time we see them, you better believe you're going to remember that Kumena is kind of a jerk, right? He is the guy who is so gung-ho about, we need to do this and this is our duty and we need to do it by any means necessary. And Tishana's like, okay, but we're not going to do the thing that we were meant not to do, right? We're not going to take the immortal sun for ourselves, because that's counter to our ultimate goal of making sure that no one abuses its power. And you are seemingly, Kumena, trying to say that we should abuse its power in trying to make sure that nobody abuses its power. And Kumena turns around and is basically like, you're old and you're a fool and you don't understand, and we're going to be the ones who fail if this doesn't work out, and there are all these people now who have seemingly found a way to find this city that you are so sure that no one can find.
Right.
And so you need to step up.
She was saying he was a little arrogant, but I think she was being a little arrogant as well in terms of the hiding that they were doing.
Well,
like, they're not going to find it. Okay, but how do you know?
Right. Well, and I mean, of course, I think from her perspective, it's the same question which is kind of funny, that a lot of people who have heard about the plane of Ixalan were asking, which is, why now? Why were people able to find the plane now? Or the Golden City now? What's so special about now? Whereas the vampires, right? The Sun Empire, all of these people, again, whether it is a myth or not, the fact that these people are now looking for it, there are reasons, and they've told us about it. But that was the question that Tishana probably had was, why now? You know, it's been hidden all this time. We're probably, you know, we're fine. Don't worry about it. And then Kumena brings the Sun Empire soldier forth, who says, no, listen, they've got ways of finding it. Like, this is what's going on. And, you know, and so this is why this is the moment. Because all of these forces kind of coming together at the same time, with Watley planeswalking and seeing Kaladesh, which she thought was the Golden City, and Vraska having the compass that points to the Golden City. Like, all of these things happen to be happening at the same time to bring them and converge them all onto the same point.
Well, I don't think that they just happen to be happening at the same time, but,
Well, we don't know why Angrath is there, and Angrath is what caused Watley's spark to ignite, because she was in such danger fighting him. So it's possible that it's just a coincidence, but it's possible that there is more to said plan if we find out more about Angrath. We have to...
yeah, I mean, obviously, Nicol Bolas has had his hands in some shit
Oh, yeah.
for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
And by quite some time, I mean, he's been waiting for a really, really, really long time to let these plans actually come to fruition.
Yeah.
So he's been sowing the seeds for these plans for many, 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 many years. So because of that, I have to assume that none of these things are a coincidence. They're just things that he was able to in some way manipulate to happen at the same time.
See, now my question is, or my speculation is, and I try to like do tinfoil hat moments as little as possible, but they just happen all the time. That's just kind of what I do. But Angrath, we only know his name and what he looks like and a little bit of his personality, in that he's a badass fire chain whip using planeswalker who also can't leave Ixalan and doesn't know why. But he's a minotaur, or a bull-headed creature. And typically when we see minotaurs, and of course I'm thinking most recently of Amonkhet, when we see minotaurs they are black or red. And he is a minotaur with, you know, fire burning in his chest, and he's got it in his face, in his mouth, or whatever. And we have seen Tezzeret work for Nicol Bolas, who is blue and black. We now know that Ral Zarek works for Nicol Bolas, who is blue and red. And so with Nicol Bolas's Grixis colors of blue, red, and black, there is only one more two-color combination that Bolas does not have as a planeswalker working for him, and that is red and black. And so if Angrath is in fact a red and black planeswalker, similar to the last Minotaur creatures that we have seen, it's not unheard of that a red-black planeswalker that we see might be working with the Grixis team, if you will, of Tezzeret.
Team Grixis.
Yeah, exactly. Tezzeret and Ral Zarek all working under Bolas, and like I said, they only need the Rakdos colors now of red and black to kind of complete that triangle of two color pairs making up the three colors.
It's a love triangle.
It's not. That'd be weird. I mean, it's not. It would be fine if it was, but it's not. But yeah, so that's, again, tinfoil hat. Maybe he is there for Bolas, but he seems to be confused on the fact that he can't leave and doesn't know what that other planeswalkers exist.
He is aware that he can't leave.
Right.
He doesn't know why.
Correct.
So he can't remedy the problem.
Correct.
But I think he just really wants to leave. I don't think he's like confused about not being able to leave.
Well, I guess, sorry, you're right. I guess I'm going off of that based off of him just seeing Watley try to planeswalk, fail, have the sigil appear above her, and then him going, oh my god, you're one of them as well. Maybe we can work together. You can help me. So I feel like if he worked...
She's the only planeswalker he's seen on this plane, and maybe he's been on this plane for God knows how long.
But he doesn't call them planeswalkers. He doesn't say you're a planeswalker. He says you're one of them. so he doesn't necessarily know the name for it. So if he works for Nicol Bolas, presumably
he doesn't
would
want to tell her the name of it if she doesn't know.
Maybe. I doubt it. I mean, it seemed a lot more genuine with him just being like, yeah, come help me, please. I don't know. We'll have to see. There's a whole lot more of Angrath that I'm sure we're going to be seeing. I assume that he will be in the next set. So we will, I'm sure, find out. Back to this week's story, though. The characterization of Tishana, of Kumena, I feel like, interestingly enough, Kapala was the one who was narrating most of the story, and yet I feel like he is the one that we know the least about, because Kapala's not the one. He was mostly talking about other people. We learned about Kapala, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the characterization of Tishana and of Kumena was much more fleshed out because Kapala was giving us his opinions, and then when it shifted over to Tishana, she didn't talk about Kapala, she talked only about Kumena. So we got to hear a little bit more about Kumena as well from that perspective. So, but in general, I mean, it was a short story, and we learned about these characters so much. We got that little hint of, the Immortal Sun has been used before, it caused ruin, there were issues there, so we know about that. That's something else to kind of clue us into why the merfolk are protecting it more so than just, it's a cool place and we don't want people to go there. It's like, no, this is dangerous and it needs to be protected.
Right.
From falling into the wrong hands.
I mean, I think Kumena just is like an action-oriented person. And instead of just waiting around for all of these invaders to just wind up on their shores, he'd like to kind of prevent this shit from happening because he doesn't want them to take control of this Immortal Sun thing and destroy everything that they've worked for.
Right. Now
I get that.
Now the issue there, though, is he wants to do that by gaining access to said Immortal Sun.
Right. He wants to use it, which is exactly the point, is to keep people from using it.
Correct.
Or any various
or even
beings.
finding it. Yeah.
Finding it, yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. But I liked the fact that not only did we get the characterization of Kumena, we got the characterization of Kumenas, plural. Because we found out that between Kapala and Kumena, they didn't specifically mention that Tishana was one, because she seems to be like the mentor of all of them and the eldest. But I assume it's her as well. But we got to learn about the Shapers, and we got to learn about the fact that Kapala and Kumena are not their birth names. They were originally had other names, but becoming Shapers, they gained the names of the places, the rivers, I should say, that they were meant to protect and be rulers over. And the
ones that reflect their personalities.
Correct. And Tishana even mentions that Kumena's personality is not Kumena's personality, that's the Kumena's plurals personalities. That's just a typical Kumena thing that, Kumena kind of inherited that. So that I thought was really cool, as well as that you get characterization just from their naming scheme. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Plus, there was a very Nissa-esque vibe at the beginning of the story from the merfolk, from Kapala specifically, but just talking about the merfolk's abilities to manipulate plant life within the waters or around the waters, in the forests, etc., and moving the jungles out of their way and then putting it back afterwards.
Right. And so the first thing I said was, "Oh yeah, the merfolk are green now."
That's right. And the last time we saw Nissa, they made a point in Amonkhet when she was part blue. That story had us
saying so and showing us how, kind of.
Exactly. And so they're doing the exact same thing here, is they're showing you how and why merfolk are now part green.
Well, I don't really think we have the why yet. We're gonna find the why.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what
Fair enough. Yeah, so we got that. This story was about merfolk. It was short, it was sweet, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just so good. You got insights into the plane. You got insights into these characters. It left you with the cliffhanger of Tashana being knocked unconscious after having... The other thing I want to point out very quickly is this is the fourth story, but the third story spotlight. We are moving through these pretty quickly, and I say that because in the past that has not been the case.
Right.
We have dragged on and been like, okay, where's the story spotlight now? We've kind of been away from it, and then they like cram two into one story. So that's something that we'll talk about it as it comes up more, but that's something that I wanted to praise this time as well, because it's something that we have not seen often, is story spotlight cards being given their time and not being like shoehorned in.
Right.
These have actually been, they've mattered. Each time we've seen one, it's been given its time and it's mattered. And like I said, well, there's still 2 more to go, and I'm sure there's more than 2 weeks of these stories left.
Right, yeah.
Since the set only just came out. So
Yeah,
is only releasing this week. So
yeah, I hope they're not deciding to do a lot less stories than they were before.
No,
I think that would be a big mistake on their part.
Agreed.
So I'm very, very hopeful that they have not made the decision to do that.
Right.
That I think would be a really bad decision. But.
Yes, and a disservice. A disservice to themselves and to us as Vorthos, as readers,
but,
as
you know,
fans.
as we talked about in other JARs recently, the fact that their story team has dwindled, and now they're doing everything in a collaborative manner, that could be one of the strategies that they chose to implement as a result of that.
We shall see.
I'm hopeful that that's not the case.
Either way, we will be back next week for JAR. I was going to say, I think I'm cool with this one. Are you?
Yeah, I think so too.
I liked it a lot.
There's more to say about it, but I think part of appreciating this story being so much better than what we've been seeing recently, and the podcasts, for crying out loud. I think part of the appreciation of this one is to just kind of let it be and not overanalyze it and not go too deeply in it, and just enjoy it for what it is, a damn good story.
That being said, please feel free to give us your opinions on our review as well as just of the story in general. Give us your review in the comments down below. We love hearing from you guys. We love talking back and forth and hearing different and varying opinions on things. Maybe you hated this story. Let us know what you thought. That's not wrong. We're not automatically right. We want to hear your thoughts. No, definitely not.
Yeah, we do want to hear your thoughts, and I just want to kind of give a little random shout out, not to anyone in particular, but just the fact that I think people who have been leaving comments recently have been leaving some pretty insightful things.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to, give back some appreciation to all of you for what you left for us in the comments.
Yes,
and previous videos.
And we love we love reading it. We love talking back and forth. So please continue to do so. Continue to show off your
#Vorthos Pride.
As always, this has been JAR, guys. The last thing I want to say is, if you missed it, I'm sure it'll be popping up eventually around here, covering my face, all that good jazz. We just had the pre-release this past weekend. We hope you guys got to go out to them. It was a crazy weekend for us. It was very, very busy, but it was totally worth it. I crushed like 1 out of the 4 that I played. I did okay in the other ones. But regardless, we hope you guys had a really good weekend. Releases this weekend, so stay tuned to the channel. You can subscribe by clicking our little logo when it appears over here. The video of us opening 4 pre-release kits is up on the channel. You should definitely go check that out. It had some pretty sweet surprises in it, despite the fact that I wasn't super optimistic on what we would be seeing. And I got a little bit of a surprise, so you should definitely go check that out as well. Click that when it comes up. This has been another episode of JAR on Geek for All. Like I said, thank you all so much for watching.
Yes.
I've been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, guys, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.